Love staying informed? Subscribe now and get unlimited access to local news, weather, and sports for just 99 cents a month for your first 3 months at inforum.news/join. Read every story, listen to every podcast, and download the apps that keep you informed and on the go 24 hours a day. So head to inforum.news/join right now to subscribe. What are you waiting for? Get 3 months of local news for just 99 cents a month at inforum.news/join.
Hello, folks. Welcome to Plain Talk. What you're about to hear is a little bit unusual from a usual episode that we put up here on Plain Talk. Essentially, what it is, it's a recorded interview I did with Governor Doug Burgum on a park bench at the Iowa State Fairgrounds. And so what you're going to hear in the background is a state fair going. You'll also hear at one point Governor Burgum step away from the interview. Francis Suarez, who is another Republican candidate for president of the United States. He just happened to walk by while we were doing this interview, and the two candidates spoke to each other for a moment. You'll hear Governor Burgum talk about that. But anyway, that's what you're going to hear for the next 20 minutes. That's how I recorded this. There's a lot of background noise, but I think it actually came out pretty good, and it was a lot of fun interviewing the governor. Again, just sitting on a bench at a state fair with lots of people walking by with all sorts of foods on a stick and stuff. It was a lot of fun. So hope you enjoy. Thanks as always for listening. Okay, here at the Iowa State Fair with Governor Burgum, who've been walking everywhere. Just telling me it's so hot out here. You just walk by a sign saying they're selling shade on a stick.
Yeah.
It's an umbrella.
It's an umbrella, but you can get everything on a stick here, and you get everything deep fried. I think there's 59 different food products that are deep fried. The one that surprised me was a stick of butter. You can get a stick of butter that's breaded and deep fried.
It takes all types, I guess. I was talking to our mutual friend Senator Kramer just earlier today, and he said to get a fried pickle on a stick. So I don't know. You're so busy. How do you entertain yourself amidst all this? Like when you're the governor of the state of North Dakota at your day job. Yep. You got this side hustle running for president.
Yes.
What do? You read a book? Do you have an app on your phone you like to play?
Well, I do read every night. Before I go to bed at the end, no matter what's going on during the day, I've got a Kindle, got hundreds of books on there, and pick the one that I'm reading, and then charge through it. I got about 3-4 that I'm reading right now. It's
one of the first things people said to me about you, like before you ran for governor or anything. They'd say, every time I see that guy at a state convention or something, he's always amped up about some book he just read, and he won't shut up about it. Is what they said. Kindly is what they meant by it. Yeah. Were you reading anything good right now?
Well, interesting. One of the books I'm reading right now is called "The Hardest Job in the World," and it's kind of an insider story of past presidents and lessons they've learned, and so that's been topical.
It seems apropos. Yes, for sure. So you're out here. This is your first Iowa State Fair. I'm assuming at all. Maybe you've been here before.
Well, Catherine and I have been to the state fairgrounds before because this is the home of the World Pork Exposition, which is a big trade show that's here that happens like a month earlier, but first time at the Iowa State Fair. And Catherine, of course, had been there because when she was working for Bobcat, she was the market manager for the manure market, and you don't have the World Pork Expo without having a lot of people from the manure industry there.
Of course.
Manure handling, whatever, and that was...
Those two industries go hand in hand.
Exactly, yes. Yeah, or hand to shovel, or whatever you want to call it.
Synergy.
Yeah.
So what's the weirdest part about running for president? I mean, I'm watching you walk all around. You got people walking backwards in front of you through the crowds. They're doing interviews. People are looking like, who is that? What's going on? What's the weirdest part of all this?
Well, I don't know if it's weird, but the thing we've spent most of our time in Iowa, New Hampshire, and the voters here are super sophisticated. They get to do this every 4 years, and they're completely unintimidated, whether it's past national office holders, whether it's people who run for president. I mean, one of the very first events we did here, the first woman that came up and introduced herself looked me right in the eye and said, "I've met every presidential candidate in both parties in the last 30 years."
Wow.
They're professionals at this, and this is kind of their Super Bowl. And a lot of them have, kept records. They've kept autographs. They've kept history. They know what counties voted which way. So the level of sophistication around issues and politics is super high, and this is the year they're amped up and they're fired up, and a lot of attention on the Republican side, because some years you would have the same thing happening on the Democrat side, but not really happening this year as much action there. So we're getting a lot of attention, and the voters are that's super interesting to me.
Do you think, there's a lot of talk about Iowa going first and having an outsized role, maybe beyond what it should in presidential politics. Democrats obviously moved on controversially,
yes.
Certainly from the Iowa Democratic point of view, moved on and have a different state now going first. Do you think, should we be doing this differently, or is this the right way to do it?
Well, I think democracies have to, maintain some fundamental principles that would, carry on to keep us going as a country. One vote, one person kind of stuff. But certainly there's a lot of game playing gets played within state parties and with the national parties about how primaries, and depends on what's happened in the past. Then people react to that. They change the rules. And right now, of course, there was a bunch of rules created this year that were all about, basically, how do we limit the size of the field at all costs, even if it means bringing in fresh ideas, new people, qualified candidates. But the rules are the rules, and that's what they are. We can't change them. I don't complain about them. It's just what they are, and then we just have to operate within those and figure out the most efficient way to win with the rule set that exists.
I've noticed you were asked that question a few times today and yesterday about the number. Are there too many people in the field? Why are you still in it? That's and you've sort of.
Hey Mayor, how are you? Good to see you. I heard you rushed it this morning. Thank you. Way to go. Hey team, good to see you guys. Keep it up.
So those of you who might be listening to this, that was another presidential candidate who stopped by quick to say hi, Francis Suarez. Now I'm forgetting what question I was even asking.
No, but I'm saying the mayor and I, we got a chance to meet this spring. We somehow keep running into each other more than any other else, and I just heard him say to somebody, "Hey, he's a great guy," and I would say the same thing. He's done a great job running the city of Miami, and fun to have him in the race.
Let's go there. You've been telling people you don't want to talk about, and maybe that's the wrong way to put it. You're not going to be critical. You're not going to tell other people how to run their campaigns.
Right.
You're comparing it to like running a business. If you're Coke, you don't invest a lot of time in running down Pepsi. You talk about how great Coke is.
Exactly.
I think we all wish politics would work that way. It doesn't, though. Somebody asked you if you would have any regrets if you got to the end of this and you didn't win. Maybe you'd done things differently. You said no. Expand on that a little bit.
Well, two things, and part of it was your earlier question before the mayor stopped by, was this idea of the field being too big, and I just fundamentally believe that that all of and you've seen the phrase with a capital T and a capital N, the narrative. Well, the narrative of all the national press is the field is too big, and it just doesn't make any sense to me. In the private sector, if you were trying to fill an important position, or even if you were a local church trying to hire a new pastor, or if you were your school board, you're trying to hire a new superintendent, and you had only a dozen people apply, and some of them may not even have the prerequisite qualifications to actually do an executive level job at this level, then I always say then you'd repost. You'd be like, oh, the pool wasn't big enough, we need to repost this position, just like we've done sometimes for university presidents in North Dakota. If the pool's too small and there aren't enough sitting university presidents that are in the application pool. So I just reject that whole narrative is goofy to me, because competition's great for the Republican Party, it's great for the country. And think about it, 340 million people, and this is the most important job in the world, and then we got like a dozen people apply. I mean, you asked about what do you think about the primary rules. A lot of people don't apply because they think the primaries are so tilted that a good person can't make it through. And then we end up with a kind of a small and maybe less qualified pool than what you would hope for as Americans in both parties. Both parties have different approaches to primaries. But your question then, to follow on critiquing others, we're at a different starting point because nobody knows really who we are outside of now a little bit of Iowa, a little bit of New Hampshire, but even with the advertising and all the work on the ground, we still have we're maybe one half the name recognition of people that have held national office, that have been
on cable news a lot.
Been on cable news a lot. They've run for the presidency before. All of these things that they've done, where we're thinking. But then if we're tied, like in New Hampshire, when you're tied for fourth place after just 6.5 weeks, and half the people in a 950-person poll say we've never heard of them. I mean, you can do the math. I mean, we got the same votes as other people did out of 900. We got out of 450 votes. So if we just keep getting our name out, we're going to keep rising in the polls for a period of time right now because people are liking the message that we have. So we're excited about where we are in the race right now. Don't think the field is too big, and I would say it's like we just have to keep being who we are every week. Keep moving forward. But if we get to January and it's a 2-horse race, then that's the opportunity for differentiation, because a voter at that point in time is going to say, when I check the box next week or tomorrow, am I voting for candidate A or candidate B? They're going to have to make that choice. That's the time for differentiation. Right now, we're just working on getting name recognition up and explaining, what we're about and who we are and what we've done in North Dakota. And by the way, telling the North Dakota story on the national stage is an unbelievable honor. And everyone in North Dakota should be so proud of what we've accomplished there, because we can hold our own with any state in the nation.
I have spoken to some pretty hardcore Democrats who I don't think would probably ever vote for you, who are tickled pink that you're running for president.
Yep.
I think because it's just a North Dakota thing.
Yep.
I think they're very happy about it. Coming up here in a few weeks, you're going to have an opportunity where you're going to face your opponents face to face, the debate. First one in Milwaukee, podium to podium, I guess maybe. How are you preparing for that?
Well, I think the biggest thing for us, there's all kinds of inside baseball stuff about how to prepare, but some people lock themselves in a closet and try to memorize a bunch of lines. For us, we have to keep campaigning right up until that day, and then start campaigning the next day because of this, what I just described. If you're the least known candidate of the pool, we've got to just keep getting out and meeting voters. And because the joke in both Iowa and New Hampshire is, they said, you like candidate A or not, or candidate B, and then the answer is, well, I don't know, I've only met him 3 times. So it's like people have an expectation of meeting presidential candidates more than we might even in North Dakota have of people that are meeting a statewide candidate. So we just have got to keep getting out, and doing that stuff. And at the debate, I know from the business sector, and even at being governor, when we said, hey, we're going to treat taxpayers like customers, they are the customers, they're paying for everything. The way you build a great business, the way you build market shares, you understand what the customers want. And every time I've been on one of these national TV shows, the first 3 or 4 questions are all about Trump's latest indictments. Today they're about Hunter Biden. And as long as people are talking about that inside the beltway kind of stuff, then we're not talking about the horrible record that Joe Biden has on the economy. Inflation, highest it's been in 22 years. We got a debt rating, downgrade last week, which is going to raise the price of, interest costs for all of us, our kids and our grandkids when we do that. With the inflation is 30 prices are 30% higher for most families than they were 2 years ago. If you ask the question, are you better off today under Joe Biden than you were 2 years ago? The answer is going to be no, because their income hasn't kept up with the inflation. And then energy prices, we're all paying too much for our gas, which drives the cost of every product up when energy prices are high. And then national security, where we know that we're in a Cold War with China. Biden won't admit that. We're in a proxy war with Russia. And we've got national security includes border security. And I was down there with the incredible, brave, courageous, and effective North Dakota National Guard troops on Monday and Tuesday, the 2 deployments we have down there. And we have an open border, folks. There are literally people walking across the Rio Grande behind me while I'm getting interviewed by a national network, and they're asking me about Trump's latest indictment as opposed to the people that are illegally entering the country. So when we talk to real Americans about that helps us prepare for the debate, because the debate questions I'm sure we're going to get are going to be about this inside the beltway stuff, and I'm going to be like, hey, sorry, this is what Americans are really focused on.
You've been talking a lot about China, and rightfully so, I think, talking about China and other foreign policy issues. How do you, because obviously your background is governing North Dakota. Your background is a very high-level executive of some very large company. And that obviously touches on some international things with trade and hiring and whatnot. But how do you get schooled up to where you feel comfortable talking about diplomatic relations with China, for instance? Are there advisors that you've called in or tapped, books that you've read?
Well, all of the above, and we have a great team, including people that have worked at the highest levels, national security, in past administrations.
Can you tell us who at all?
I wouldn't at this point in time, but I just say we got a great team of people that are supporting what we're doing, and there's always learning, but this is always something I've been interested in. But when you take a look at China specifically, my first trip there was 1980, right out of college, when they just opened up, and it was really tough to get. You couldn't get a visa from the U.S., but were able to figure out how to finagle one way. We were in Hong Kong to actually get into China. I was back there in 1989 when Great Plains. We were only selling in the U.S. and Canada. I was on my way back from Australia. We were setting up our first truly international distributorship outside of North America. I swung by there, and they told me, hey, there's a market where you can go to, a street market where you can buy U.S. software, and Lotus 123, VisiCalc, the early spreadsheets before Excel. I thought, well, I've just got to go check this thing out. And I went there, and as a joke, I said, hey, do you have Great Plains software? And the guy said, sure. And he went over it, and he had 5 1/4 inch floppy disk for $1 with our software that we were selling for $5,000 a module. So you're gonna, for like $5, I could get $50,000 worth of software, and I was just shocked. And then from that point on, throughout my entire career, which in the software, which included right up till the day before I was sworn in as governor, I was still chairman of a public company that was, at that point Atlassian, that was a different company that was selling products all over the world. Every company I worked with, every industry in software, the Chinese stole everything we made. And like, why do we have them be part of the WTO? Part of being in the World Trade Organization is you're supposed to honor IP. So I've never trusted China from the standpoint of they will steal all of our ideas and all of our innovation, and that we've just got to have a completely different approach. But now when we've got Blinken, Yellen, and Kerry all over there, and no one's talking about energy, and they import 10 million barrels of oil a day. They're the largest importer. They're the economy that's most dependent in the world. And Rob, World War II in part got won. I mean, yes, watch Oppenheimer. We dropped a bomb on Japan, but before that happened, that war was virtually over. It was just a question, because our submarines had sunk every oil tanker trying to get from Sumatra. Japan did a blitzkrieg through all the islands in the Pacific to get oil fields. That's why they bombed Pearl Harbor. They didn't care about Pearl Harbor. They were trying, because they're an island still today with 126 million people with zero oil and gas.
There was just a great book about, it was, now I'm forgetting the author, but the title of the book was Bomber Mafia.
Yeah.
And it was about how they were wanting to do precision bombing in Europe to specifically take out ball bearing factories,
right,
of all, because ball bearings were everything for the German army.
Right.
Their tanks, their artillery, everything. If they could have taken them out, they could have ended the war. It didn't work out as they planned, but to your point, and we know, on world history, we know that about kamikazes that were, taking out ships, like those that were, like my dad, who was was one of the ones. 151 destroyers at Okinawa and 129 were hit by kamikazes. Less well known is that at the end of the war, they had the 2 largest battleships in the world were built by the Japanese, and they basically sent them out on battleship kamikaze missions. They had enough fuel to go out and engage the U.S., but they didn't have enough fuel to get back to Japan. And the naval officers said, we know this war is ending. We're not going to end with our 2 prize ships here. We're going to literally go out and go down with a ship. And they went out and kamikazed the 2 largest ships in the world. You've been so generous with your time. Your staff's telling me one more question. So,
yeah, my point of that is, why aren't we using energy as a tool in our negotiations with China, with our leverage with China? We have a chance to not just be energy independent, but be energy dominant, be an energy superpower in the U.S. And this administration is too busy trying to kill all liquid fuels. They're trying to kill the U.S. energy industry as opposed to using it for the one tool that absolutely can end wars and change the stability in the world.
Last question: what does a good debate look like for you? Like, coming out of it, what's your objective?
I'd say a few singles and error-free ball. That would be it for us. We don't have to hit a home run. A home run for us is that we're 1 of 8. We've made the first biggest hurdle that's going to weed out a bunch of people. And there's other folks on the stage that, like I said, they've never created a private sector job. They've never had to make payroll. They've never had to cut their own pay to make sure their team got paid. I think by January, people are going to say we like private sector experience. And then for those that have private sector experience but haven't run a state, then that's important, because I think people understand that if you get someone that has never spent a day in understanding how to pull the levers of government, there's a learning curve, and we're going to know what to do on day one in terms of staffing the 4,000 positions that the White House gets to appoint, and know that how we can start executing for the executive branch on day one. By January, people will figure that out, and if we're in the top 3 or 4 come January when the voting starts, we love our chances. We got a wide open lane at that point.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Rob. Thanks for coming all the way to Iowa.
Did you know Forum Communications Company has a robust podcast library? At inforum.com/podcasts, we have everything from politics, sports, true crime, outdoor adventure, and more. Visit inforum.com/podcasts and explore them all today.